just really quick and give me like your name and how long in the business?
Markel, just got in. I'm literally new, like 3 days ago I joined.
Did I hire you? Mindy?
No.
I was going to say, your name doesn't sound familiar to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doris Walls, and I've had my license for 2 years, but I've only been active since July, so 6 months.
Great. Esperanza?
Esperanza. I just started, just got my license.
Are you with here or in another company?
With no one yet.
Okay, great. And you?
Piero, I've been in my home group and working in real estate for 4 years.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you guys made it. My name is Mindy Thompson. I am the main recruiter here for my home group, so I do most of our hiring. And in addition to that, I teach a lot of our sales classes, sales-based classes. And like I said, I'm a real estate coach as well. Not for our agents, but for a separate coaching company. And so I coach agents all over the country, which is actually nice because I don't know how much you guys know about this, but Arizona can kind of be an anomaly like in real estate with like the way we respond to market changes and stuff like that. Other countries, they all kind of respond the same. And then there's like Arizona, this like redheaded stepchild. And so it's kind of nice to see the way things happen in other places. This class today is about knowing what to say and how to say it. And so it's going to be heavy on scripting, but a lot of the class is going to be how to use the scripts. And so I can give any one of you a script, and I'm going to, when you leave here, I'm going to send you all a link to a Dropbox of all of my scripts. So the company that I coach for and all of my clients use these scripts that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, and I'm going to show you like kind of how to use them. One thing that I always like to tell people, and I'm sure it's one of my first points, it is important to be scripted. We are going to hear the same things in real estate day in and day out. We may as well know what to say back, right? And so there's no use in having trying to be creative every single time someone says something to us or trying to think of something. That's so much work, you know? If I just know what to say, like for instance, let's say I'm talking to someone in an open house and they say to me, yeah, well, I had my house on the market, but it just expired. Rather than me going, oh, crap, what do I say now? What if I was like, oh my gosh, well, where were you looking to move to? And it just flows right off the tongue, right? It helps us keep conversations going. I don't know about you guys, a lot of people aren't naturally really like talkative people, like really like kind of chatty people. I am, so I don't have the problem, but it's good for you to have you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna hear the same things, whether you're sitting in an open house or you're knocking on doors or you're out talking to people all the time. You're gonna start to get the same questions and hear the same things. So it's best for us to have the answers. Similar with objections. Like what if you're talking to someone, which you're going to if you haven't yet at some point in your career, and they go, no, my home expired on the market, but I'm gonna list it with the same agent again. That's an objection, right? What do I say back? Crap. Rather than going, a lot of us will start to go, good luck with that. Instead of being like, oh, okay, great. What do you think that agent's going to do different this time? You know, we should have these things to say because we're going to hear these things all the time. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about use of our body language and kind of like just some hacks on getting people to like you right away when they meet you. All right? And it can work for anybody. It doesn't matter how shy you are or how outgoing you are. It all works. The number one reason and why people hate this class is because they hate the word scripts, right? We all get into real estate, and I don't know if you guys have ever said this, but I talk to licensees every single day of my life, and one of the things I hear the most is, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be a salesperson. So scripts make them seem, scripts kind of to a lot of agents equal like robotic or something like that. And it's actually not the case. Scripts are actually the opposite of that. They help you sound like you have your together, and really smart. you're already using scripts. That's what I want you to know first. Whether you think you are or you're not, you do have your responses that you say automatically. So for instance, when someone asks us how we are, what do we say? Like if someone goes, how are you doing? What do we say? Good. Right? You could be having the dumpster fire of a day, and our robot goes good, you know? And have you guys ever talked to someone where you've asked them, how are you doing? And they're like, oh, well, you know, and we kind of get annoyed a little bit because we just wanted them to say good and to go on with our day. You know what I mean? But you're already using scripts. You know, how are you? Fine. How was your day? Good. You know, we do have our auto responses. In real estate, they're probably just not the right ones quite yet. And those of you who are brand new, this is great because you haven't had a chance to have bad habits yet. And so you're right where you need to be. So you're already using scripts. The thing is we want you to use good scripts. Okay? So we're going to talk about a lot about that. One thing I want you to know about all of sales, and this is where almost every real estate agent gets it wrong, and we're talking even like some of the like, kind of even really successful real estate agents, is they think selling is talking and presenting and showing you how great I am in all of these things. No, that's not true. The best salespeople will always be the people who are asking the most questions and who are sitting back and listening. Those are going to be the best salespeople on the planet. Me sitting and telling you how great I am, and now I'm just like everyone else you've talked to today. If I sit and ask you 20 questions and really hear you out and ask you more questions based on those questions, you're going to feel closer to me than everybody else, okay? And that is sales. That is selling, and that's why I don't want you to have like that bad like taste in your mouth when the word selling comes. First of all, reminder, if you get into the Arizona Department of Real Estate, next to your name, it says salesperson, okay? You did sign up for that. So that's always what I like to remind people of right away. But I also want you to wrap your head around the best way to sell is asking good questions and then listening really well. When we know scripts, we're able to listen really well. Why are we not able to listen really well? We're so worried about what we're going to say next that now I can't really listen to you, right? But when I know I'm going to know what to say, now I want to know everything about you. Not worried about my part. I'm really interested in you. And I think I say this later on, so I'm not going to say it. But being really, really listened to, you can Google this, triggers the same part of our brain as feeling loved. You guys know that? We are so used to not being listened to in our everyday life that when someone truly just sits and listens to what we say, that part of our brain that feels loved gets like lit up. So that's why it's really, really important to you when you're selling for that person to feel really, really listened to. A lot of the other reasons that people don't like selling is because they don't like to hear the word no. Okay, so like it is the number one reason that real estate agents don't want to talk to people every day, whether it's cold calling, whether it's holding an open house, whether it's knocking on someone's door or going into someone's social media DMs and asking about real estate. It's the number one reason we don't want to do it is because we hate when they say no back, okay? But I don't want you to feel that way. I'll tell you this, I probably hear no 90% more in a day than I hear yes. And that's how sales works. That's real estate sales, that's car sales, that's jewelry sales, it's insurance, it's everything. We're always going to hear no more than we hear yes in real estate, okay? I don't want you to be afraid of that word. Oh, who in here right now is looking to buy a house? Exactly. Okay, good. I'm not. I just bought one earlier this year. So if a realtor calls and asks me if I'm looking to buy a house today and I say no, I just bought one in March, who cares, you guys? It's not a bad word, right? In real estate, we start to get like offended, but like with my coaching clients, I'll start to say, get as many no's as you can today. Just go, get me no's, get me 10 no's today, right? Because we know in sales, it's also a numbers game. And so the more no's we get, the next, yes is coming, right? And so we just put ourselves in the position enough. We're going to talk about body language today. 55% of our communication is our body language. So watch. When we are talking to somebody, 55% of how they receive us is just this, and how I'm moving and how I'm nodding my head and shaking my head and things like that. 38% of it is the way I sound. Do I sound excited? Or do I sound boring? Or do, whatever. Only 7% is what I actually say. Okay? Only 7% of how you are received by somebody is the words coming out of your mouth. That's why I don't want you to worry about presenting. I'm not presenting all the time. No one cares about that, right? They care about all the other things. So we're going to talk about how to manufacture some of these things. This is crazy. I think I might have the wrong. I think I might have the wrong PowerPoint up. Hold on one quick sec, guys. I'm sorry. This is annoying. Let's see. Maybe I don't. Maybe it is the right one. I have so many slideshows. I've given the same classes so many times. This is fascinating. Okay. I don't know where my version of this is with all of my notes. So let's just kind of go into this. And then I'm going to get into scripts themselves and show you guys this. But I just kind of want to give you like the background more. Okay, I'm going to elaborate on a couple of these. So objections, and that's when someone says no to us, okay? I'm already working with an agent, right? I'm going to use the same agent I used before. I have a friend in the business. These are objections, okay? Part of what I'm going to give you guys is it's something called 40 most common objections handled, okay? And what it looks like is those. I'm going to work with the same agent and then some handlers. And then it's going to go, my home expired, but I'm using the same agent again. And then it's going to have some handlers, okay? And I want you to work on those. Now, the way this looks with scripts is it should be something you practice every day, every work day, okay? It should be like built into your business plan, especially just getting started, as everything else. So like you're going to start to have people like working with you on like your social media and things like that. Great, yeah, we need to do all of that stuff, but we have to know what to say. I would carve a minimum of a half hour a day out. And if it's, I would suggest when you guys get my scripts that you print them out and have them in front of you and practice out loud, okay? Something that you also want to do is consider having a mirror in front of you when you practice, because we want to know how we look to other people. We all think we look a certain way when we talk, and we all think we sound a certain way, but we have no idea the way people perceive us back. And so even recording yourself is not a terrible idea, okay? I have some clients who record like voice notes in their phone of them saying a script. And so while they're driving, how much do we drive in a day? While they're driving, they're sitting there like repeating and reciting their scripts, okay? And they're objection handlers. So I would pick one at a time, first of all. Don't try to memorize 30 at a time. Memorize one at a time, all right? So like something that I would do, look, I'll just pull this up so you guys can kind of have an idea. Here's an example of a script. And all of my scripts look like this. They're about the same format, okay? The way I did it was I would memorize like the entrance first, so that, and then I'd memorize how many questions there was. So let's say there's 9 questions in this script. I would memorize like the first 3 first, and I would like repeat it all the time. Then I would add like the second 3 on, and I repeat it in my car or wherever, all of those in a row until I memorized it. Once I memorized it, okay, I would go on to the next one, all right, and so on and so forth. But I want to tell you how to use these scripts because our body language and our tone matters, all right? First of all, and this is more of a woman thing, but it's not, men aren't immune to it necessarily, but women are really guilty sometimes of talking like this, you know? And I've coached men that are too. A little less common, but for instance, like, they'll say things like, let's say I call you, and I go, hi, this is Mindy with my home group. See how we do that? Watch to make sure you're not doing it, all right? And this is manufacturing confidence. We are probably not confident all the time. Who is, right? This will make you sound like you are. Fake it. Use the hack to fake it, okay? So we don't want to be like, hi, this is Esperanza with my home group. You know, we don't want to do that. We want to go, hi, this is Esperanza with my home group. Period. So you want to ask every question in any of my scripts like it has a period on the end, not like it has a question mark on the end, okay? Especially in that first part. So, hi, I'm looking for Esperanza. No, hi, I'm looking for Esperanza. Do you see how, like, we have a couple of seconds when we first start talking to someone to make a first impression? 7 seconds is actually what we have, whether we're meeting them in person. I would say on the phone we might even have less, okay? Think about how many people call us and we're like, what do you need? Or we just hang up, or whatever, right? It helps manufacture that authority that we want them to have. In any sales situation, we want to be viewed as the person with authority. Okay? We don't want the client to feel like they have more authority than us. We want them to look at us that way. Think about it. We're selling the most expensive thing they own. They don't want a wishy-washy, soft person coming to the negotiating table. They want to really believe that you're strong. And so, periods on the end of everything. Hi, this is Mindy. Hi, my name is Mindy with my home group. All right? Nothing. So, hi, I'm looking for Doris. Hi, my name is Mindy with my home group. I'm sure you figured out that your home came up on my computer as an expired listing, and I'm calling to see. Now, every time in my scripts you see ... it's a pause. Not a long pause, but it's where it's a break. Sometimes when we start using scripts, it's common for us to go, hi, I'm looking for Doris. Hi, my name is Mindy with my home group. I'm sure you figured out that your home came up in my computer expired listing and I was calling to see. Like, it's really normal to sound like we're reading. And first of all, it's okay to sound like you're reading at first. It's okay. It's part of learning. You're going to sound like you're reading first, and then you're going to really memorize it, and then you're going to sound like it's your words that you invented that you wrote. Okay? That's the last part. The first step is you might sound a little robotic. You might be talking too fast. That's why we put pauses in. And you might sound like you're reading. Who cares? Do it enough times to where that goes past. Like, I could recite any one of my scripts and you would never know that it was a script. That's just how you get to know it, okay? Also, if you get to a point where you are making calls, it's okay to practice your scripts on your calls. I have sometimes my clients do open houses, and I'm like, every person that comes through the open house, you need to ask these 3 questions too. The first couple times when they're asking the question probably seem a little awkward. By the end of the open house, they're no problem just asking the question. You know what I mean? So the repetition will help. But these, in all of my scripts, you'll see the dots, and that's just like a quick pause, okay? I'm sure you figured out that your home came up on my computer as an expired listing, and I was calling to see, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? Not, who? You know what I mean? Period. Period at the end of the questions you're asking. They're always going to reply something to us. Here is where we have to really, really watch out in sales. We can't make them wrong. They're always right. Whoever we're selling to is always right. Okay? And people, agents who are really experienced, and agents who are, I hate to say it, but really maybe confident, maybe higher intelligence, they love to prove people wrong. They love to show why they're smarter, you know, or more knowledgeable, and you are. You are more knowledgeable than your client. You don't want to act like you are. That's like top turn off, okay? I always tell my coaching clients, when you prove your client wrong, you lose, okay? So they're always going to reply something to you right off the bat. And I have no idea, like this is really annoying. I'm going to try not to throw my computer through the window. No matter what they say, never, screw off, whatever, like you're always going to acknowledge it and agree, okay? So I go, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? And they go, never. And I go, never, I get it. Okay, sure. And guess what I do next? I don't try to change their mind. I dodge it like a bullet, 100%, and I go on to my next question. Don't try to solve every problem as you get them. We're just going to go on to the next question, and I'm going to tell you why. Who here knows about the reflex no? Okay. When you walk in, let's say I am going to a bridal shower and I need a dress and I want it to look a certain way and all of these things. And let's say I walk into a department store. Someone's going to come up to me and go, can I help you with something today? What am I going to say?
No.
No thanks, I'm looking.
Exactly. Right? All of us. That is called our reflex no. We do that in all of sales. I'm at a car lot, a guy comes up to me, I'm good, just looking. No, who just goes to a car lot for fun? You know what I mean? And especially me, like, I hate shopping more than anything on the planet. Why didn't I just have them point me to the flowery sundresses? You know what I mean? It's like, right? But our reflex no, we all have it. Your clients do too. They don't know you. They have no reason to come and give you anything else than the reflex no. And another thing with salespeople is we keep our cards close to our chest, don't we? You know? And so we want to get them to talk to us long enough to where they can't help but to answer our question. Okay, so watch this. Nobody say a word. I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, nobody say a word back. What is your favorite color? What's your favorite number? What's your dream car? Okay, when I ask you these questions, does anything pop into your mind? Do the answers to those pop into your mind? Okay, and you're not saying a word, but the answers are coming into your mind. When we can keep someone talking to us long enough and they're saying no, 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 eventually they start to give us answers. That's just the way humans work. Right? So my job is to keep the conversation going long enough to where they're, boom, I had a job transfer. It didn't work out, you know, or whatever it is, right? I decided not to sell. Or my agent was a schmuck, you know, whatever, you know. They will. And that's why we're dodging those bullets and getting them to ask that and asking that next question. That's the science behind it. Okay? So we want to keep them talking to us. We're going to, in all of sales, all of my scripts, we're going to ask you a question. We're going to agree with whatever you say. We're going to acknowledge you. We're going to validate you, right? I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to hire another agent. Really? Why? That's not a good idea. Oh, yeah, you're someone I really want to stay on the phone with. You know, I want to use the same agent I worked with last time. Well, that's silly. Right? No one's going to still sit and talk to you. We want to validate them and acknowledge them. Make them feel listened to. There's a saying that we say in my coaching, it's MMFI, make me feel important. The more important I feel, the more likely I'm going to be to want to be around you. Okay? Ask a question, validate them, go right on to the next question, no matter what they say. Okay? They might even say, where'd you get my number? You know, things like that. Oh gosh, I know, you must be really frustrated. If you sold your home, where are you gonna go next? You know, you're the 10th agent that's called me today. Really? Oh my gosh, that must be overwhelming. If you sold your home, where would you go next? See how I'm acknowledging it, but I'm not addressing it. Those are two different things, okay? In an open house. Oh, I'm just looking today. Oh, that's great, I totally understand. What part of the home is most important to you? A kitchen? You know, I don't care. Their answer is not what I care about. What I care about is validating you and going on, okay? How soon did you have to be there? Well, gosh, I really wanted to be there in 6 months. Ouch. What do you think stopped your home from selling? Okay? Using their name is something you have to be careful with. Have you guys ever talked to someone, especially like in sales, where they're constantly saying your name? Like, well, Mindy, why do you think they would do that? Well, Mindy, I got a question for you. And after a while, I'm like, shut up. Like, it's overkill. It's too much. And maybe it's because I coach this and I know what they're doing, but I don't like it. I don't even like when my clients use the person's name in emails too much. Like, Mindy, I told you this before, like, it sounds confrontational and I don't like it. But I do like to put it in there enough to where they know I know their name. Okay? So it gives them, again, that like MMFI, make me feel important, you know, when I know your name. Sometimes when I'm recruiting people, I'll say, yeah, like you'll want a domain name, you'll want to be like MindyYourRealtor.com. Like sprinkle their name in silly, smaller ways like that. Okay, and so our goal is like, and when anyone's first starting to practice scripts, I'm like, don't worry about the results, don't worry about whatever, try to get to question 5 every time. Or I'll say, tell me which question you keep getting stopped at, okay? If I can get that from somebody, I'll know how to coach them on how to keep someone on the phone a little longer. I just need that information first. If you're not getting past this, it's 100% your tone. It's 100% your tone, the annoying, I sound salesy, I sound like a salesperson, I sound like a robot. It's gonna be that every time, right? If you're not getting past like here or here, it probably still has to do with you spending too long here. Too long on with their answer. We're dodging it like a bullet, you guys. Like you're literally like the Matrix, like dodging it like a bullet and going on, okay? Like I said, I would recommend you memorize like 3 at a time. And then remember also, no matter what they say, we're gonna acknowledge it and they're gonna be right. You're the 20th agent today that's called me. Oh my gosh, how frustrating. I can totally see why you sound so frustrated. If you sold your home, where are you gonna go next? Distract them, right? Match their tone is something that's interesting. So if I am naturally kind of like a louder, more direct person, I have to water that down if I'm talking to someone who speaks quieter and slower. Because if not, I'll make that person feel just like bulldozed over. And they don't want to talk to me if I make them feel that way. So it's important to kind of have a basic idea of like what your communication style looks like so that you know that, so you can adjust to other people. Because watch, if you were selling to someone like me and you were like really timid and quiet and whatever, I would destroy you, right? So it's important for us to know who we are so we can practice this. You guys, it doesn't matter who you are naturally. You can learn different habits. I recommend some of these things you start using at home with your husband, your wife, your kids, your friends, your parents. When they ask you a question, the easiest thing you can do is try to answer their question and ask them one back. Or when you ask them a question, based on their answer, ask them another question about it. Okay, so watch. What if I said, if I sold this home, where would you go next? And they said, LA. LA, how exciting. Well, what's there? Well, I was going to get closer to my grandkids. Oh my gosh, how many grandkids do you have? boys, girls, and now they're talking about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. It's their favorite thing. It's all of our favorite thing to do is talk about ourselves, right? And so now I'm like building more, I'm learning about them. But that information, when I ask people that next question, and then maybe even the next one, maybe even the next one, gives me more ammunition for down here. Okay? So, or for my follow-up. Let's say they hang up on me and I call them a week later. And I'm like, hey, how's it going getting back to your grandkids in LA? That's a different question than that realtor who's just going, hey, I know you hung up on me last week. Have you found the right agent yet? See how those two are two really, really different phone calls to get? One is all about me, and one of them's all about you. Okay? But the more, we have to have that information. So I also find that the number one reason people don't follow up on leads, because they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't want to bother them. X, Y, Z. Well, the more info I know on them, I'm not bothering them. I know exactly what to call them and say back. And I know exactly how to check on them, right? And that's important for you guys to know because 70% of all of your contracts signed, probably over 70%, will come from follow-up. They will not come from your initial meeting in an open house, meeting at someone's door, first conversation on social media. 30% of the time something will come from that. 70% it'll be, hey, I talked to you last week, I wanted to check back in. Have you thought about talking to anyone yet to get you closer to your grandkids? 70% will come from that. So it's really, really important that you're not afraid to do it, and a lot of realtors are, and it's because they don't do this, okay? So watch, what if I said, what would you expect from the next agent you choose? And let's say they say, well, gosh, what if they said something like, well, I guess, to sell my house. I'd be like, right, your grandkids want you there, right? Do you see how it just keeps that continuity of a conversation going? So at home, when you guys go home today, when someone asks you a question for the rest of the day, answer it and then ask them another question back. Or when you ask someone a question and they answer, say watch, what did you have for lunch today? And they say, pizza. Oh, that sounds good. Where'd you get it from? And then when they go, risottis. Oh, risottis, I've never tried that. Would you recommend it, or is there something better you'd recommend? You just want to get good at this being natural, like who you are. Because it's really hard to turn on and off all day long. Better to just be on all the time. And watch this. I find myself meeting clients and stuff like that when I'm not even looking for them, because this is just so ingrained in my system that, and my husband hates it, because we'll be sitting in a restaurant, next thing I know I'm learning all about the person next to me. But then guess what? Somewhere in that conversation, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm in real estate. What about you? Well, gosh, I have a question for you. What is going on with the market? In these conversations, they just get thrown at me because just based on who I am, I'm just always learning about somebody, and eventually it comes down the pipeline of what are you going to do? So I want this just to be kind of who you are. Practice on people all around you and practice your tone. So the next couple times you do answer your phone or you're talking to someone maybe in a grocery store or whatever, really work on that downswing. It's called a downswing, that period at the end of the sentence. Really, really work on that. It's really important for us just to come across as confident, even if we're not quite yet. It'll make us sound like we are, okay? The other thing I want to tell you guys when it comes to scripts and when you're starting to look at all the scripts, anytime you're asking a question where you want them to say yes, nod your head while you're asking it. Just like we mirror and match people, you guys heard of mirror and matching? Do you guys know what that is? So if someone is leaning in, you know how we kind of lean in a little bit? Or if someone's giving us a cue that I need some space, we kind of back off a little bit. That's what we want to do to other people. If they're loud, we want to be a little bit louder. If they're quiet and more meek, we want to kind of downplay or slow down a little bit. That all takes practice. But mirroring and matching is a real thing. And do this at home with your partners, with whoever. When you want them to answer a question, question, yes, nod your head while you're asking it. You know what I mean? Don't be like obnoxious about it. You know what I mean? Like obvious. But for instance, like, I can't do it with my husband anymore because he knows what I'm doing. But I would say something like, let's say it's your kid. Like, hey, do you think it's a better idea to do your homework now or after dinner? You know, there's a good chance you're like, oh, I'll just go do it now. You know, it's just the way it works, you guys. Okay? If we want them to answer no, shake your head while you're asking it. Okay? You're not looking to interview other agents, are you, right now? And then, no. Watch. Even if you're on the phone. If you are even on the phone, nod your head when you're asking a question you want them to reply affirmative to, and shake your head when you're asking a question you want them it to be negative to. All right? Do it in all of your life. Start with your families and all of that kind of stuff. It's kind of fun. Okay? I remember, this was probably like 10 years ago when I first, and I was in coaching for several years before that, but when I first started practicing this, I was doing the question thing with my husband, like kind of like every time he said something, I was asking him another question. And he literally at one point goes, why are you asking me so many questions today? And I was like, oh, busted, you know? But it's a great way to practice, and now it just comes natural all these years later, right? And so when you, at home, whatever, especially in sales, like let's say you are in an open house and you're like, hey, how did it go? You know, didn't really have something. Oh, well, there's other homes in the neighborhood. You just want to go see one maybe this weekend? Like, do you see how like subtle that is? Like, it's no big deal, right? And they have no idea what you're doing. Almost all the time. They'd have to be doing what we do to understand that. I've never once been called on it by like a consumer, just so you guys know. And I'm the worst. Okay. So the intro's really, really important. And it's not this is where we get stopped a lot because we're going to sound telemarket-y. We're going to sound something like that. So here's something that I've done as a hack to that, is I act like, I talk to them like they might already know me. So I'll say something like, hey, it's Mindy with my home group. And I give them like a second. And then I go into, I'm sure you already knew this, but your home came up as an expired listing on my computer, and I was wondering, when are you going to hire an agent for the job of selling your home? And so like that first couple seconds, they won't hang up on me because they're like, where do I know this person from? She knows me, clearly, you know, and it helps me get here, no matter what script I'm using. You know, even if it's like someone walking into an open house, hey, how are you? Smile. Smile is important, okay? And then they're just kind of like, it's funny to watch them, kind of caught off guard, but then they kind of immediately like smile, like, oh, you're good people, you're nice, you're someone I want to be involved with, I like your energy. Whereas if we're sitting behind, you know, a table in a chair and we're like, hi, feel free to look around, you know, that's a really different experience than the house I was just in where someone's like, hey, how are you? Welcome in. Thanks for coming today. What, like, just like based on those two things alone, like that's how fast people make decisions on who they like to be around. No one is going to work with you that doesn't want to be around you, okay? People want to be around people who listen to them. They want to be around people with high energy. They want to be around people who don't make them wrong and who always validate them. So that's why we do that, okay? This is true. So a study was done several years ago, and it was on salespeople with high energy versus salespeople who were kind of like the most knowledgeable on the same topic. So let's say I go into an appointment and I'm competing against John, and John has 20 more years experience than me. It might be a little bit better at this job is what I do. When we go to compete, I usually win because I have higher energy. So it doesn't matter what he knows, if he's boring, if he's blah, if he's bland, whatever. The person with the higher energy and excitement will usually win. All right, so that's how important that is if we know that's not who we are naturally, okay? Because it can be manufactured. You can fake it, right? I know I have some other slides on here. I want to talk about first impressions, okay? This is something I work with people a lot on because, like I said at the beginning of this class, such a small oh Lord, especially not him. A big portion of how we're perceived isn't what we're saying, okay? So these are just vehicles to get someone to just keep opening up to us, all right? First impressions, it's not necessarily fair, okay? But first impressions are wildly important. People start to make up their minds. Like, let's say they walk into an open house. It's like tick, 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 and they're making up their mind about you. It's that fast. So I always tell my coaching clients, especially newer ones, always dress a little nicer than you think you need to. It helps with the first impression, okay? Real estate, especially in Arizona, is a notoriously casual profession, and that's okay, because let's face it, 120 degrees is really freaking hot, right? But you can always dress like a little nicer than you think, you know? Especially, fun fact, with people who already know you. So let's say your cousin says, hey, can you come over to my house? I'm thinking about selling it. You know, I would show up to that appointment and treat it just as seriously as anything else. Not just because they're my cousin, I wouldn't show up in my sweats and my flip-flops and all of that. I would show up nice, and I would show up with like my formal presentation and everything. And if they didn't want me to go through it, that's okay, but I showed up ready to, is the thing. And here's why. Your cousin might use you either way. They have to, you know, or whatever, right? Let's say they're going to use you either way. What we can't guarantee is that they're going to refer us to their boss, to the high up at their kid's school, you know, things like that. So we want them always looking at us when it comes to being professional as someone that they can refer to anybody, and they know our style, so we're okay, right? I want them to know that they can refer me to anybody. And sometimes I hear a lot of people, especially here locally in real estate, be like, well, I don't want to show up dressed, you know, nicer than they are and intimidate them or something. That's so rare. That's such BS, because that's so rare that that would ever happen, right? Our clients want someone professional, strong, articulate, and all of that to go up to bat against the guy on the other side, right? It's our job to get our client the most money. They're going to believe in us more if we look the part. So especially you newbies starting out, I would always dress a little nicer than you think you need to. That first impression, like I said, you have 7 seconds. When you first meet somebody, it's very important to look them in the face, to look them in the eyes, okay? Have you ever met someone that like you meet and you shake their hand and they kind of look away or something? Or you ask them a question and they're like, well, you know, have you ever, like, how do you feel when that happens?
I'm like, look at me.
You're like, I'm right here. Yeah. Or I'm just like, what's going on? Like, what's the matter? Or, you know, it doesn't signify confidence, okay? A really easy way to fake confidence is to look someone in the face when they're talking to you, all right? The second thing is smile. It's really, really important, bless you, no, bless you, to smile when we first meet somebody, okay? Even on the phone.
Yeah.
Let's say someone says, hey Mindy, call my friend, she kind of wants to buy a house, I told her you're gonna call. I'd be like, hey, this is Mindy. John gave me your name. How are you? You know, and smile. And that's why having a mirror in front of you on your desk can be a really good thing, because it catches you like, ooh, I look like I'm having a bad day in that mirror, you know. All of those things come over the phone 100 times more than you think, okay? So let's use this open house example. We're sitting in an open house and someone walks in. It's really important to get up, make eye contact, smile, you know. Those are hacks to a good first impression. It doesn't matter how you really feel, they're going to make you look a certain way, all right? Some of us are really natural smilers. Some of us are not. It doesn't matter. You can learn how to do it, okay? It's important, though, for you to know who you are. Like I always say, I would love to start like a side business someday where I like help people with their first impression, because I love it. It's like so fun. But I could be like, hey, you're just not a smiler. I just want you to know that. I want you to know that you come across very stoic and serious, and that's not going to be for everybody. Everyone is for a smile, though, you know? So you're going to dress a little bit nicer than you think. You're going to look someone in the face. You're going to smile, and you're going to shake their hand. When you shake their hand, it's important. Have you guys ever shook someone's hand, man or woman, where they're like, argh, You know, it's like, that's annoying, you know, especially like, I'm like, ow, why did you do that, you know? And I shake people's hands every day of my life. Have you ever shook someone's hand that was really noodly and soft? Ew, right? It's like, they're like, you know, and it's gross too. Make sure you have a good handshake. And you can practice this as well. So I'm giving you tips that, do you see how like these aren't even like what you say? Like it's smiling, give someone a nice handshake, a confident one, but not freaking squeeze their circulation off and stuff like that. Smile, look nice. Those are the best things you can do for a first impression. Those are hacks. If you're not doing even one of those things, you're probably going to start to lose people, all right? And then, you know, acknowledging what they say. We're just looking today, okay, great, you know, or what do you mean, you're not going to make an offer? You know, I was talking to someone I was interviewing last week, and she said she was talking to somebody, and she goes, well, you're my first brokerage I've looked at. I'm going to call, or I have appointments with 2 more. And this guy goes, a broker owner, he goes, cancel all of those. You don't need to do that. Cancel them right now if you want to just sign on the dotted line. And she was like, well, I'm not really comfortable. I'd rather see what all the options, which she's right. She's right. All the options look like, but he wasn't listening to her. And all he did was when she came, by the time she got to me, she's like, I know for sure I'm not going back there, but I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Like he took himself off the table so fast by not acknowledging what was important to her, right? And so these are all things that really, really matter as we're like going through scripts. So I have scripts. This is expired script. I have one for someone who's selling their own house, FSBO. I have people in your sphere of influence, phone calls that you can make to them. Sphere of influence is everyone you know, everyone you've ever worked with, everyone in your family, all your friends. If you're married, your spouse's friends. Eventually it'll be all your past clients. It's a big list of people. That is the only group that I'm not a stickler on a script with. Because you have a different relationship with like Mary than you do John, than you do maybe past coworker Steve, right? The same script doesn't need to be used for all of them. I'm fine with the list of people you know for you to be really casual with that conversation. Hey, I saw it was your birthday, what'd you do? You know? We just want to remind them that we're right here, you know? Statistically speaking, anyone that you have ever worked with says they will work with you again. Almost all the time, like over 70% of the time, the person says, yeah, I'll work with them again. How often do they actually? Like 30% of the time. Even though they said they would. Why? Why do you think?
Because they're not thinking of you in the moment.
5 years goes by, 7 years goes by, even though they loved that guy. There are 50,000 licenses in Arizona. We're getting inundated with realtor information. Even though they loved you, if they haven't heard from you in that long, they're likely just going to use that flyer that came to their house, you know? So we have to remind people all the time that we're there. Calling them and saying happy birthday, calling them and saying I saw your daughter just got married, congratulations, calling them and doing all these different things reminds us that they're there. So those ones don't necessarily have to be real estate. I'm not a stickler on those ones. If you know them, if you knew them, if you've worked with them, I'm fine with those calls being whatever excuse you want to make that day. With expired, with FSBO, these are some of the most complicated conversations you'll have because you're dealing with frustrated groups of people, right? My house didn't sell. I had it on the market 6 months. I kept it clean. I had people through it. Maybe I got a couple of cancellations, got my heart broken a couple of times, and now you're calling me today. I'm pissed, okay? So this is when it's really, really important to follow the script. Stick to the script, right? Some of these more casual conversations, not as much. Also, some of you might think, I'm never gonna call an expired listing. That's not the way I wanna do my business. That's okay. I'm never going to focus on for sale by owners. I don't need to know that script. Yes, you do. And you need to know it for the same reason I said at the beginning of the class. You could see them in something you are going to do, social media, open houses, whatever. And they could say, yeah, I've got my home on the market right now, I'm selling it myself. I still need to know what to say. I still need to know how to engage in that conversation. So a lot of people, when they get into real estate, they're like, I'm not going to do phones. I'll never do phones. People tell me this every week of my life. It drives me crazy. I'll never do phones. I'll never do phones. That's okay. So what are you going to do when someone calls you on a sign call? Are you not going to talk to them because it's a phone? Right? What if you're working a lead? What if you get a Zillow lead? Are you not going to call them because you refuse to do a phone? You're going to call them. No matter where your stance is on where you're going to sell and who you're going to sell to, you need to learn, you need to know how to talk well on a phone. Okay? So these are still really, really good skills. If someone calls on a sign and asks you questions about your house, if you just answer them and you hang up, that was a huge miss. Because before you get off that call, you should have an appointment with that person. So you need to know what to say on those calls. Scripts. Okay? If you're on a team and you get a Zillow lead, and the Zillow lead says X, Y, and Z, if I leave that call without having an appointment set, I missed. I wasn't using a good script, right? If I'm on the phone with a family member and they say their home just expired and they're going to probably just use the same agent again, and I leave without an appointment set, I've not used the right script, okay? And I don't know the right objection handlers. What do you think that person's going to do different this time than they did the first time? Why didn't they do it the first time? Can I ask you? You know, and we don't have to be, see how like I smile even when I'm asking like an uncomfortable question? Because it like lightens the mood. Rather than putting them on the defense to justify why they're doing what they're doing, let's just talk, you know? And so that's why these scripts are really important, because it's not necessarily who you are, but it's who you can fake to be until you are that way, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you scripts on, like I said, expired, FSBO, center of influence, just listed and just sold. Now, just listed and just sold, I'm going to show you this script because it's my favorite. This is the one I want you to start with, okay? The just listed script. I was like cold when I first got here and I'm like burning alive. Your just listed script is going to be the least confrontational script we have. This is a script you should memorize before you do an open house, or before you do your next open house, or have on you at your next open house, because this is where I have my clients start with, when did you plan on moving? How long have you lived at your house? Where did you move from? How did you pick the area where you live? If you were to move, where would you go next? Are you looking in this area? These are great conversational questions. They're also great questions in everyday life. So let's say you are let's say you're talking to a server at a restaurant, you guys. You can ask these questions. Let's say you are talking to someone in a grocery store. These are questions you can ask them. Okay, so these are where I always want you to start. Memorize these questions first because they're the most versatile. They're also the questions that, like, if you're going to do an open house and let's say you're going to knock on a couple neighbors' doors to invite them, these are great questions for them as well. Like, hey, I'm holding an open house just a couple of houses away where that for sale sign is. I just wanted to invite you to come. You know, here's a flyer. What? No harm. I'm not, it's not an expired call. You're my 30th call today. You know, it's like, oh, thanks. You know, yes or no. Well, how long have you lived in the area? Do you love it here? You know? Do you have any of your friends that want to be one of your neighbors? These are how we learn about people and what their plans are and who they know. I want to know all about you, but I want to know all about who you know, too, right? And so, well, gosh, my friend did say she loved this area. She might want to talk to you. Awesome. Like, can I have her phone number? Want to put us in a group text? Like, whatever, right? So this is a good script to start with. And again, we're going to do the same thing. Don't worry about this part because this is if you were prospecting around a listing. So it's a good idea, you guys, when you get your next listing or your first listing, to get a list from Charisse or whoever of the people around the area. Like maybe like a quarter-mile radius around the area, all those people, because these are good calls to make. Hi, my name is Mindy with my home group. I just listed a home for sale down on Apple Street. It has 2 bedrooms, 3 baths, and it's listed at $500,000. And I was wondering, who do you know that wants to move into your area? Well, I don't know anyone right now. Well, that's great. I appreciate you taking the time to think about it. Well, what about you? When do you plan on moving? Never. I totally get it. And how long have you lived here? Like, they're great conversations for you to have. And again, a really non-confrontational place to start. Like if phones are going to be part of your business ever, which I recommend it, this is a good place to start, because just listed calls, like I said, Title can run you the list, free, okay? Free for you to make your calls, and they're really not the most confrontational phone calls. A lot of times they'll be like, no thanks, or I'm not looking right now, or I don't know anybody, I'm sorry. Now, even if they say that, I don't know anyone right now, great, I totally get it, and I appreciate you taking the time to think about it. What about you? When do you plan on moving? I'm not going to stop just because they say that. It's just the starting point for our conversation, so now we can talk. Okay? So like I said, you'll get a Dropbox of all of these. My recommendation is you practice it out loud, you record it, and then you just start listening to it like when you're in your car and stuff like that. So they just become like ingrained in who you are. There are other scripts. Okay, mine aren't the only ones. So I coach for the Mike Ferry organization. You guys have probably heard of Tom Ferry, that's his son. There's, I think Tony Robbins has scripts. There's a lot of different places you can go to get scripts. I don't care which ones you use. My clients use these, okay? My top producing client did 125 million in sales last year, all right? I know they work, all right? But if you see another style that you like better, great. Download them, do this with them, start listening to them. If you ever wanted to call and like set up a time to just over the phone practice with me, I'd love to do it. Just schedule a quick 15, 20 minutes, and I'll sit and listen to you sit and give you suggestions back to go practice. I think that's a really good idea. The more you practice, the better. The more you practice your scripts, the better. I would have it part of your everyday. So the client I have had the longest, I've had almost all 10 years of my coaching. She's in Southern California. She did, I think, 52 sales last year. She practices these every day of her life with her assistant. Every single day, even though she's been doing this that long. Right? There's no work day that goes by that she doesn't spend a quick, right at the beginning of the day, she like sits there and gets in her email, and she knows it, so she's just doing it off the top of her head, but her assistant's giving her like the objections, and she practices it every day. So we never arrive. You always want to be practicing. And these agents that you start to see like on social media and in some of these like panels that you're seeing and stuff, you guys, if they're doing like 50, 75, 100 deals a year, they're practicing something all the time. Right? So you're not too good for it, is my point. Like, it's not, you never arrive. You always want to be working on getting a little bit better. So I highly recommend it's something that you make like part of your day, and then you practice. And then, like I said, those things you can do on the side of asking that extra question to somebody once they answer your first one, and practicing smiling and not, shaking your head when you want them to say no and things like that. Those are all things that it will help you get your way a lot in your life, not just real estate, okay? Is there any questions on any of this stuff that you guys have? Is there any part of like reading these that you would need help with? Like when I send you the Dropboxes, they're all going to look about the same no matter the topic. And then I'm going to give you the objections handled. So like for instance, I want to use the same agent, or for instance, I decided not to sell, or I'm going to sell it myself. All of these things that we start to hear all the time. I'm just looking when I'm in an open house. All of these types of things, so you'll start to practice those too, right? And then, like I said, remember that it's okay to practice in person. So let's say you're doing an open house. It's okay for you to have this script in front of you and go, gosh, I'm just going to ask like that first question to the next person who comes in. Maybe if it goes okay, I'll ask the second question. But you can have it in front of you. So in between people coming through, revisit it. Like one of my clients is learning this script, and she's door knocking a lot right now around her listing. And she's got this on a clipboard that she's looking at as she walks from one house to the next, just to like have it, because she's nervous, right? So you forget things when you're nervous, but she's got it in front of her. The listing presentation script, when my clients are new, and you'll get this too, I have them write the questions out on a notepad, and they say something to the client like, hey, I want you to know I've written a couple of questions down just so I don't forget because they're really important. So I hope you don't mind. Everyone goes, that's great, I don't care, whatever. It's your script written out by hand, you know? And so then you don't forget to ask really important questions. You also don't have to worry about getting derailed. If sometimes when we're in a listing, you guys had one yet where like they kind of go off on a tangent when you're in the appointment. Next thing you know, they're like, have you ever talked to someone who goes down a rabbit hole one way, then on that they go down a different one, and it's all the same like kind of sentence, but they just, where are we? This helps us to go, oh good, that's all great. Hey, I just have this one question though. How long have you lived at your address? Helps you take back control of the conversation. Because we want to be the authority, we want to be in control, and these help you. The person asking the questions is the person in control all the time in sales, okay? Your doctor, when he comes in, does she start asking you, how long have you had this headache that you're telling me? What medications are you on? Anyway, what medications are you on? What are your symptoms? They're in control, aren't they? They're asking all of the questions, and we need them to be. We don't want to be in control when we have an ailment or in front of our doctor, right? We want them to kind of be the authority. And so that just like gives you like a kind of an example. And guess what? Do you think your doctor's scripted? Do you think your doctor learned in medical school all the questions they were supposed to ask you in that appointment? Do you think they made them up on the fly? Do you think they're winging it? No. They were trained to ask you all of those questions, and we don't sit there and go, oh, is that a script? You know, like we're so hard on ourselves in real estate, like people are going to know or people are going to think whatever. No, they don't. It looks like you have your stuff together is really what it looks like. Your lawyers, when they are, you know, they're in a deposition in front of a jury, do you think that they don't know exactly what they are about to say, what exactly they're about to ask the person who's on the stand? All of that's a script. It's all planned out. We're no different, all right? Let's see. What other questions? Any questions or anything like that? Is there anything here that you guys are like uncomfortable going and trying?
I don't know when you sound like too friendly, and not sound too friendly because you gotta be friendly, but there's some people that know you're trying to sell them and they're like, oh, he's just acting friendly because he wants me to see this house.
You're talking too much. Yeah. They shouldn't even know that much about you. You're talking too much. Like one time that's a good question. I was talking to this kid I was coaching. He's in Florida. He's a kid, 21 or something. And he goes, they ended up not choosing me for the listing because like in our conversation it came up that like I really haven't left the state ever before. And they just, when they replied, they're like, we think we need someone a little more worldly and whatever. I said, Darren, why did they know that about you? What the heck were you talking about to where that even, you were talking too much. You weren't just going on to the next question and keeping control of the conversation. So if someone thinks you're too friendly and they maybe can't take you seriously or something like that, you have talked too much. You haven't listened enough to them. But you're right, because a really, really serious, like dominant personality, that will rub the wrong way. And I think you could also, if that was you, work on that. So like when you're practicing, like on your way to meet that person, if I know that's who they are, I'm a big believer in pre-qualifying buyers and sellers before I ever meet with them. So that means I'm asking them a series, this is in my scripts, a series of questions for over the phone before I meet with them. It's a good